Okay, yeah, we'll call this collective committee meeting to order, and will Mr. Presley's return. What I'm going to do, Mr. James, I'm going to start with the Public Service Committee first.
Sure, thank you, Mr. President. The first item coming from Public Service is the 2019 Concrete Street Program. The city had issued a request for bids on this. The lowest and best bid and the recommendation of the administration is to award the bid to Concrete and More Incorporated of Avon Lake in the amount of $757,339. The Public Service Committee considered this and is recommending the City Council that we accept the bid and award it to Concrete and More. I'd like to set this for first reading, and on the second reading, ask my colleagues to suspend the council rules and award the contract at that time in order to get started on the concrete work as soon as possible ahead of the construction season.
Thank you, Mr. James. Questions with the 2019 Concrete Street Program? Mr. Arnold?
No, just to let everyone know, I will be asking to abstain from that vote due to a conflict.
Okay. Any further questions? Next item, Mr. James.
Thank you. The next item is Veterans Park shoreline erosion. The Public Works Department obtained quotes from contractors to place fillstone in along Veterans Park northwest of the lake house. This is necessary because the area is eroding and we don't want to lose the portion of the boardwalk there. The lowest and best quote was obtained from All Seasons Contracting of Columbia Station in the amount of $24,000. The administration has asked us to expedite this in order to get the work done as soon as possible, so we minimize the amount of damage to the shoreline, and therefore I'm going to ask that council take this on first reading, and I'll ask my colleagues to suspend the council rule to move forward with this as quickly as possible given the weather.
Thank you, sir. Questions in with the Veterans Park shoreline erosion? Any other items, Mr. James?
No other items, Mr. President, but I wanted to indicate to the public and to City Council, I've conferred with my colleagues on the Public Service Committee. Typically, the Public Service Committee meets its regularly scheduled meetings on the fourth Monday of the month. However, in order to take up an issue regarding a gazebo in Veterans Memorial Park, I am scheduling a special Public Service Committee meeting on Wednesday, March 13th at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. And the only item on the agenda for that special meeting will be consideration of the gazebo in Veterans Park. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that will go to the Finance Committee. Mr. President, I'm going to turn this over to you with the 2019 bond issues.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I apologize for my tardiness getting to the meeting this evening. The two bonds that you have in front of you are respective to the notes that are currently outstanding for Avon Lake Regional Water. Those notes will be rolled into the two bonds that are highlighted here. These two bonds will be sold in a competitive bid together after the city has sold the bonds that were on the agenda last week. That is, the city will be selling the 9.75, I believe it is in total, bonds on or about April 10th. Roughly 10 days later, we will then turn around and sell these they're general obligation bonds, but the purpose is for Avon Lake Regional Water. These are 30-year repayment bonds versus the 20 years that are the city's bonds that we will be selling separately. And if there's any questions, I will take those at this time.
So both these, what path do you want us to take here in terms of passage on emergency first reading? Or?
If you would, that would put all of them together on the next Monday's council agenda. The city's, the first ones would be on second reading. These, if you have no objections, I would appreciate passing on first reading, and that way we can move on with the Moody's review and rating, and then get everything ready for OMAC, and then getting them ready for the preliminary official statement and all the necessary documentation that would be required prior to actually going out and putting those for sale April 10th.
Okay, questions dealing with the 2019 bond issues, the last two, Mayor?
I just wanted to point something out. On page 15 of that document, you have the signing sheet, and there's no provision, no place for anyone from utilities to sign it. It's all the city of Avon Lake. So that's because the charter establishes that, and the state of Ohio doesn't acknowledge that relationship that we have through our city charter, and it's a fact of life. So utilities cannot go out and borrow monies on the open market like we are here. We have to do it in their stead. So they have a situation where they're almost like a minor and we are the parent, if you will. I know that's not a pleasant concept for people on the utilities board to accept, but that's the reality of how we are treated by the state of Ohio. A lot of things come to me rather than going to the Board of Utilities or the CUE at utilities. They come to the mayor of the city of Avon Lake, even though it's their business, if you will.
Thank you, Mayor. Any further questions on bonds? Okay, with that, we have other business dealing with litigation, so I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Lieberman.
This is a minor lawsuit that was filed in Bedford Municipal Court against the municipal utilities. And they'll be considering a resolution to hire the law department to represent them in the case. And by charter, council is also required to authorize that representation. So that's basically what we're asking for. The legal fees will be paid out of the funds of the Board of Municipal Utilities, so it won't come out of the general fund.
Okay. So what do we need here? We need a resolution?
Yes.
With the amount of fees in it?
It's an ordinance.
An ordinance?
The maximum amount of fees that we're asking, and I don't anticipate we'll get anywhere close to it, but the maximum amount, just so we don't have to keep going back,
Okay.
is $10,000.
$10,000?
Yeah.
Okay. You just pass next week, I think.
Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
fine.
Questions dealing with litigation, Janny King versus Avon Lake Municipal Utilities Department. Mrs. Vanderbosch.
Thank you. Could you look at section number 3, Mr. Lieberman? Is that, do you want to change the section number 3? The very last part of
Yeah, it
section
is-
number 3?
It is
Oh,
$5,000.
$5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would change that. I didn't realize that, I thought I said 10, but
Okay.
it'll ultimately end up being closer to 5 than to 10, but we might as well make it 10, because I think that's what I had in the resolution for the Board of Municipal Utilities.
So for clarity, we're going to change it not to exceed $5,000 to not to exceed $10,000. Is that
Right.
correct?
That's correct.
Thank
You,
you.
Ms. Vanderbosch.
Thank you,
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Vanderbosch. Any further questions on that item? Okay. That concludes the committee reports. We do have under legislation, third reading, temporary legislation 11,215, authorizing the mayor to enter into a lease agreement to acquire Ford F-550, 4 and 2 chassis with equipment for the Public Works Department. Any questions on that item? Had to go through public service. Another third reading is temporary legislation 11,220, amending section 1070.02 of the codified ordinance to provide for turning off of park lights. Any questions on that item? Second readings, we have temporary legislation 11,221, authorizing the mayor to enter into a CRA tax incentive agreement with Poly1 Corporation. And it was presented last week by Mr. Arnold. Any questions on that item? We go to temporary legislation 11,222, providing for the issuance and sale of $1,300,000 of bonds for the purpose of improving streets and constructing storm sewers and related drainage facilities. Any questions on that item? Next is temporary legislation 11,223, providing for the issuance and sale of $940,000 of bonds for the purpose of improving Lear Road and the Krebs Road intersection. Any questions on that item? The temporary legislation 11,224, providing for the issuance and sale of $2,465,000 of bonds for the purpose of constructing storm sewers and related drainage facilities in the Morwood Area Combined Sewer Separation Project. Any questions on that item? Temporary legislation 11,225, providing for the issuance and sale of $5,290,000 of bonds for the purpose of improving streets. Any questions on that item? Next is temporary legislation 11,226, amending codified ordinance chapter 260, employees generally. Any questions on that item? We went through human resources. And temporary legislation 11,227, awarding a contract for the storm sewer connections and tree lawn drainage project. Any questions on that item? Okay, with that, is there any announcements anyone has? And with that, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Wrights.
Yes, I'd like to remind everyone that we are still holding the meeting with the public about the trash contracts at the Avon Lake High School next Monday. Prior to council meeting, it'll be at 6 o'clock at the Avon Lake High School at the Performing Arts Center. Kimball will be there, the Kimball representative will be there doing a brief PowerPoint. They'll have some additional information for residents that goes into a little bit more detail about recycling programs in the rollout, where all the carts will be delivered and so forth. So we will be broadcasting that the day of the event, plus it will be on our website afterwards for people to follow up. And I have asked at the ward meetings that if anybody has any questions in advance that they would like to know about, they can email me at jrreitz@avonlake.org, so that we can either be prepared to answer those and discuss those at the meeting, or I can answer them ahead of time and get people as much information prior to the meeting as they may feel is fit. So once again, that's at Avon Lake High School next Monday, the 11th at 6 o'clock p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wrights. Any further announcements? Okay, with that, meeting is adjourned.